I really do like the combination of the two words that make up our event today because it's not a combination you're going to see in educational circles. See, educators love that word collaboration, right? But it's the word radical that makes us really, really uncomfortable. See, radical might mean a change. It might mean challenging tradition. And when you start to challenge tradition in education, boy, people get upset. People get uncomfortable. Let's get uncomfortable. Okay? We all know these pictures right here. Students in their rows, right? Doesn't look different. Awaiting instruction, waiting to be told what to do, what to learn, waiting to have most of their daily decisions made for them. But not enough people know these kind of pictures. Kids engaged in learning and discovery. Kids figuring out for themselves what they're going to do for the day and at what pace. Or how about this? Kids right here, busy deciding on things from school rules to budget, to whether or not each of the adults at their school even has a job the next year. Yes, you heard that correctly. See, it's these kind of schools right here where kids are equals to the adults in every way that make us traditional educators very, very uncomfortable. But as it turns out, it was finding out about these schools. It became the catalyst for me in deciding, you know what, I'm going to need to get uncomfortable in my chosen career field. And it all started with this boy named John. And John is this 5th grade student at my school, and he is this absolutely amazing young man. He's the kind of kid, he's always got a smile on his face. He always puts one on everybody else's. Everybody loves John. But see, John's never been the standout student academically speaking, right? But John had made an appointment to meet with me and another school administrator. So he comes in the office and John begins to go through this beautifully rehearsed business proposal. Right? And he's got a flip chart that he's created with personal drawings on it relative to what he's proposing. And he's pitching us an idea of turning a portion of our current school campus into a smaller version of Disneyland. So he lays out this thorough plan on how it can be done, like why it should be seriously considered. And I've got to tell you, it was absolutely genius. There was nothing else I wanted to do when he got done other than to make this happen. And you guys, I hate Disneyland. Okay, but you see, there was this maturity, this ability, this confidence that young man had in presenting this that was so far beyond anything his peers could have accomplished because you see, at that moment, John was wrapped up in his specific genius element. And that's when it dawned on me. After all my years working with kids, I finally realized, genius is just as much a part of every single one of us as is DNA. And it's very similar to DNA in the fact that we've all got it. It just looks a little different as you put it under the microscope. Okay, John's genius is an interpersonal one. Okay, that natural interpersonal ability he has. See, here's another realization. We haven't done anything for him in school. That natural skill set, that hasn't been taught to him. Right? It can't be measured on a standardized test. It's not going to be mastered through hours of homework. So in a very real way, school somewhat failed John. I didn't want that situation for him. I don't want it for any of the kids at our school, right? I surely don't want it for my own daughters. So I decided I had to research the alternatives. I decided to take a look and ask that uncomfortable question, is there a better way to do things? And I've got to tell you what I found. It shook my professional and educational beliefs to the core. Okay, I found an entire slew of alternative schools that are collaborating with students in these radical ways that directly oppose many times these traditional and the public school models. They go by the names democratic, free, agile learning centers, Acton academies, Sudbury schools, and there's others. But they're effectively changing the model by believing in the unique genius of each child. See, a democratic or a free school, they're going to defy that model that says you've got to be grouped together with only people your exact same age. Like when you're 6, you go with the other 6-year-olds, you go to first grade. And guys, I'm 35 years old. I hope I'm not only speaking right now to those of you who are 35. Right? People of different ages mixing together, you guys, that's real life. An Agile Learning Center, an Acton Academy. See, they're going to defy that model, that familiar model that focuses only on standards, because what they realize is that standardization of people and of learning, you guys, that's utterly useless. Think about standardization for just a minute in terms of people. If it's a great idea, why stop? Why stop at the end of high school? Why don't I have my quarterly assessment right now to make sure I'm at the standard level of knowledge for a 35-year-old? And then I can do it every year again until I'm like 90, all right? And at Sudbury Valley, which may very well be the most radical school of them all, they dare question a system where you move along this assembly line, getting your predetermined packets of prescribed knowledge that now you can just look up on Google, right? And you do it year after year until you fall off your conveyor belt, right? And you've got your diploma-shaped stamp of approval and a skill set to do not much but take a test, which then only causes you to borrow thousands of dollars to essentially possibly repeat the same process depending on where you go to college for the next 4 years. So now this time there's more alcohol around, right? And this time you might also have a little bit of freedom, which is a concept at that point you don't really know what to do with. You see, the radical belief for these kind of schools is that every child does possess genius, thus we should be collaborating with them, which means trusting them to lead the way on what their learning looks like and doing it on their schedule. And yeah, that does mean some kids are going to learn to read after kindergarten, and that's okay. You guys, I didn't learn to walk until I was well over a year old. I'm sure many of you walked at a much younger age than I did, but as I'm standing here moving around on stage, are any of you going, that guy must not have learned to walk until he was like 18 months old? Of course not. Hey, reading is no different than walking in that respect. You guys, Einstein could barely read in the 3rd grade, and that guy ended up being pretty smart. Okay, we're obsessed with forcing kids into these grade level time frames. It's actually going against those time frames that's making all the difference in the world for these kind of schools. In fact, at Sudbury Valley in Massachusetts, there's no other way to learn other than unobstructed life experience. The adults in the community, they provide resources, they're role models. Other than that, they get out of the way without trampling motivation. There's no classrooms per se, no grade levels, no grades, no homework. There's no rules. Well, of course, the ones designed and enforced by the community as a whole. And I know what some people are thinking, but no, there is no anarchy. Because see, radical collaboration at a democratic school means a true democracy, from 5-year-old to 18-year-old to staff member. And at their weekly school meetings, every kid, like every adult, has one vote, and they help to govern the school completely, debating and deciding on staff hires, budgets, and all the rules. Hey, it's the kids who are in charge of writing the scripts for their own personal heroic journeys. The kids that come out of these schools, you guys, they're amazing. They're so confident in their ability to adapt throughout life. They're confident in their ability to be emotionally resilient. They're happy and they care about the happiness of others. They're ready for a world that is rapidly changing. And because of that, the communities at these schools are so much more organic and so much more authentic and transformative than any of these other models we have in place. So why then haven't we had a revolution embracing any of these unmodels, if you will, as of yet? One of the reasons is fear, right? People fear going against the majority, even when it's clear to them that the majority is wrong. And another reason is that people just get too comfortable to ask, is there something better? And it reminds me of what Harriet Tubman said. She said, I freed 1,000 slaves. I could have freed 1,000 more if only they had known they were slaves. So, administrators at your traditional school sites, stop focusing on standards. Encourage your teachers to learn alongside the students as more of a Socratic guide rather than that sage on the stage. Invoke more of a democratic process. Work together with the kids to solve problems that the kids actually care about. You guys, I've worked both ends of the socioeconomic spectrum. Kids everywhere have problems they care about. They have things they want to solve. Teachers at your traditional school site, spend your year pulling out and celebrating the genius inside each one of your kids, even if that manifests itself into something that doesn't look like a skill set normally taught at your school. And parents of school-aged children, consider the alternatives. Don't be afraid to let your child explore the road less traveled if that road's the right road. And no, the road doesn't have to lead to Stanford or MIT or your Ivy League schools, although it might. Ladies and gentlemen, please consider that if an educational revolution is going to take place in America, it's going to be forged and fostered by schools like these. We need people open enough to found those. We need kids curious enough to attend those. And it's going to be forged and fostered by public educators who are willing to encourage and to extract genius in a system that currently actively suppresses it. It's going to take all of us to be willing to get uncomfortable.